Hey guys, it's Saturday morning and it's time for story time with Mr. Adam. I have two books that I want to read today and then a Bible story that I want you to think about. It's a great time of year, isn't it? We're getting into the middle of December, the holidays are getting close, and maybe, just maybe, you're thinking about presents. Maybe you're thinking about those. Now, I want you to think with me about gifts, about presents, but I want you to think about it in a better and more special way today. All right? So I have three books, and I think maybe you'll understand where I'm going. The first book that I want you to think about with me today, and we'll read it together, is called God's Gifts. Now, we need to think about what God gives, don't we? Now, think about some of these great gifts of God. Ready? God gives us so many lovely things. Butterflies with gorgeous wings, flowers that are bright, and birds that sing, nests of robins in the spring. Baby deer so smiling sweet, grass so green beneath our feet. Sun that shines and trees so tall, stars that twinkle over all. We know about that out here in West Texas, don't we? Roses red and violets blue, cobwebs fringed with pearly dew. Lilacs full of sweet perfume, clover meadows full of bloom. Cricket songs and whippoorwills, babbling brooks and singing rills, bees that hum, and wind that blows, bringing rains and bringing snows. A heart that loves, a voice that sings. God gives us so many lovely things. Now, that is a pretty small book, isn't it? And now, when you think about God's gifts, well, if we were to name all of God's gifts, you really can't put them in a book this small, can you? And so every day we need to think about the abundance, how many gifts that God really, really gives us. Now, the question next is, what am I going to do to help others with the gifts that God has given me? All right? Now, this is where I want to challenge you. This is where I want you to think, all right, let's see what everything God has given me. Now, what might I be able to do to help someone else? Well, that leads me to my next book. I love this little book. It's going to be a favorite of yours too, I bet. But it's called You Can Do It, Sam. Now, let's read the book and then I'll ask you some questions, all right? You can do it, Sam. It happened one winter morning on Plum Street, and the moon was still up, making moonbeams and shadows on Plum Street. In the little white house, Mrs. Bear and Sam were baking cakes. They stirred with big spoons, swirling and tasting batter. They peeked in the oven at 2 rows of cakes, golden brown cakes for their friends on Plum Street. "Come on, cakes," whispered Sam. "I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait." Mrs. Bear and Sam waited for cakes. "Now can we go, Mama? Now?" said Sam. "Soon," Mrs. Bear said. "Soon, Sam." They waited and waited, and at last Mrs. Bear sniffed the air with her nose in the air and said, "I believe our cakes are ready." Mrs. Bear and Sam counted cakes, and there were 12. They tucked them in bags, and there were 12 red bags. Outside, snow tumbled on houses and sprinkled the trees. It powdered the yard and Mrs. Bear's truck. Mrs. Bear and Sam climbed up in the truck that was green. They bumped along in the early light, just the two of them on Plum Street. uphill and down, up and down, to the very end of Plum Street. Our friends will love my cakes, Sam told his mama. Of course, Mrs. Bear said. Mrs. Bear pulled up close to the first sleepy house. Here we are, Sam. I'll wait here and you take the cake. All by myself? Whispered Sam. Go, 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 said Mrs. Bear as she put her arm around Sam. You can do it, Sam. And off he went, all by himself in new snow, all by himself, wearing a red bag and waving to Mrs. Bear, all by himself, taking cake to their friends. Sam left the red bag at the door. The sign on the bag said, "A tasty surprise." Then he ran back to the truck where his mama was waiting. I did it, said Sam. Of course, Mrs. Bear said. Mrs. Bear and Sam bumped along, just the two of them, uphill and down, up and down. At each sleepy house, Mrs. Bear stopped the truck. She put her arm around Sam. Here I go, whispered Sam. Go, 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 Mrs. Bear said, and off he went, making tracks in new snow, waving a red bag and waving to Mrs. Bear, leaving one tasty cake at each sleepy door, all by himself. Until they got home. There were 2 cakes left, in 2 red bags. Said Mrs. Bear. For us? Whispered Sam. Of course, Mrs. Bear said. Mrs. Bear and Sam held hands on path to the little white house, and the sun was just sunning up the little white house. Hello, house, said Sam, and they went inside, kicking snow off their boots. Mrs. Bear poured cocoa in cups, and they wriggled their toes in fat socks, enjoying their cakes with cocoa. As their bellies filled up, they took turns telling stories. Stories about a bear called Sam who takes cakes, all by himself, to his friends. And they all love his cakes so much. And that's what happened one winter morning on Plum Street. Now that's a neat story, isn't it? Doesn't it make you just feel good to think about Sam, about him making those cakes with his mama and then taking them to their neighbors? They didn't even knock on the door, did they? They didn't tell them who had done it. They just surprised them. Now, can you think of something you might be able to do? Maybe it is some kind of baking cookies or baking cakes or baking some bread, or maybe it's writing a note and sending it to someone to just brighten their day. Do you know that's a great gift that you can give even at your age? Can you think about a widow or widower at Westside that maybe you could encourage by providing them with a gift or a note or doing something kind? You see, God has given us so many great gifts, and we need to take those and share them with others. Now, it reminds me of a Bible story. Now, the greatest gift that God has ever given is what? It's His Son, right? It's given us Jesus on the cross. His is the greatest gift, the gift of love. For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, John 3, verse 16, right? Well, even as Jesus was getting close to dying on the cross, just a few days prior to His going to the cross to die, there was a woman who gave Jesus a wonderful gift. And I want you to think about that gift with me before we're done today. This is the last thing that I want to read with you. And this is in this little Bible story book. And if you don't have these, we have them in the library here at the church building. But you can find these online. And this is just a great Bible story study book. And so here is, in this book, the story that I want to share with you. And you can find it in your copy of God's Word in Matthew, Mark, and John. They all talk about this gift. And this is what it is. In Bethany, a Pharisee called Simon was putting on a big party with Jesus and Lazarus as guests of honor. Jesus had once healed Simon of leprosy, and that's why he was so friendly. The house was full of guests, including Mary and Martha and many of the disciples. And when supper time came, Martha served as usual. She couldn't help it, and they couldn't get on without her. Mary, however, had no liking for such things. She was thinking of Jesus and how much he had done for her. In a way, she too had been raised from the dead. Had he not saved her from a very wicked life? Well, she longed to tell him how grateful she was and how much she loved him. But how? She had an idea. But dare she act on it? She had thought about it a long time and saved up for it, and, well, maybe now was the time. After all, he wouldn't be here much longer if the wicked rulers in Jerusalem had their way with him. And slowly she walked toward Jesus, unnoticed by the guests who were busily eating and chatting with one another. And from beneath some covering, maybe the folds of her skirt, she brought a lovely alabaster jar full of expensive perfume. Quickly she poured some of it on the head and feet of her beloved master. At once everybody paused, sniffing. "What has happened?" they asked, recognizing the agreeable aroma. Then they turned toward Jesus, where Mary, weeping hard, was wiping his feet with her long, beautiful hair. For a moment, everyone was struck dumb. Nobody could think of anything to say. And Judas, who looked after the disciples' money bag, blurted out, "Why this waste? Why was not this perfume sold and the money given to the poor?" Not that he cared for the poor, of course. It was just to make the others think he was pious. But he made a mistake. "Why do you trouble the woman?" said Jesus, "for she has done a beautiful thing to me. For you always have the poor with you, but you will not always have me. In pouring this ointment on my body, she has done it to prepare me for my burial." Then he made a remarkable prophecy. "Truly, I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what she has done will be told in memory of her." And so it has happened through all the 1900 years that have passed since then. Mary's lovely deed will never be forgotten. Jesus was going to die on the cross. He knew it. Nobody else really did. But even before he went to the cross, Mary brought him this gift. It was the gift of perfume. And we might say, well, why? Why did she bring that gift? And did that really cost much? Well, the truth is that was a really, really expensive gift that she gave Jesus. They say that gift probably cost her a whole year of money. What she would make in a whole year, she bought that perfume to anoint the feet and head of Jesus because she loved him so much. I wonder, what can we do to show our love to Jesus? What can we do to show him how much we care and love him and appreciate everything that he gives us every day, and especially what he has provided us with being able to go to heaven to be with him? Well, we show him our love by obeying him. And young people, even at your age, it is important for us to begin to understand that it is really better to give than to receive. They criticized Mary for giving this gift to Jesus, didn't they? They thought she was out of her mind for giving this gift. But Jesus said, you know what? People are going to remember, and they're going to talk about Mary from now on. And so, some 2,000 years later, who are we still talking about? What gift are we still talking about? That expensive perfume that Mary gave to Jesus. He is right, isn't he? We still talk about that gift even today. Now, I'm challenging you to think about, what can I do to brighten someone else's day? What can I give to help someone out? This has been a challenging year for a lot of people, for your neighbors, for your friends, for people who are going through difficulties. What can you do to help them to have a smile on their face? Well, what you can do is take something that God has given you, and you can help them to have a good day. All right? So I'm challenging you to think about a gift that you can give. It does not have to be expensive. It doesn't have to cost you anything. A little note of paper, a little gift that you might be able to provide, just some act of kindness to bring a smile to someone else's face, you'll be so happy that you did. And better than that, God will be so happy that you did too. All right, so that's my challenge to you today, to think about a gift that you might be able to pass on to someone else to bring a smile to their face and joy to their lives. Can you think about it? All right. Well, you guys be good, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time, okay? All right. Bye-bye.